Welcome to JoyMed podcast, brought to you by Safe Haven, a program of the Medical Society of Virginia. I'm Melina Davis, your host. I'm the CEO and EVP of the Medical Society of Virginia. We're thrilled to announce the launch of this new podcast series, where we'll delve deeper into the challenges faced by healthcare professionals, explore strategies for resilience, and highlight the support systems available to them. Each episode will feature expert insights, personal narratives, and practical tools to help foster a healthier, more supportive environment for our healthcare heroes. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss this important series, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Together, we can create a culture of care and support, ensuring that those who care for us are cared for as well. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to continuing this journey with you. Welcome back to the JoyMed podcast. I'm Melina Davis, your host, and I'm thrilled to be here today with a very special friend of the Medical Society of Virginia's and Safe Havens. John Poma is here with us from the Tidewater Physicians Multi-Specialty Group, or TPMG, as we call it around here. John is the very first Chief Legal and Compliance Officer for TPMG. And John, you are just a great friend, and we're thrilled to have you with us.
I can't tell you how great it is to be here and how much I appreciate you having me.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. Where'd you drive in from today?
So actually, I live in Richmond now.
Oh, great.
I live in Richmond and then commute to Newport News and Williamsburg for my position.
I love it. And how long have you been in your role?
I have been at TPMG since January of 2019.
Oh, gosh. So a while. And you went all through COVID with that practice.
Went all through COVID, yep.
Oh, goodness. That's quite a beginning.
It was. Yeah. I sort of joked, in each of other positions I've had, something has happened, so I blame COVID on me.
We're not doing that. Don't say that out loud. Oh, goodness. Well, you and I have known each other since, I think, about 2019 was the first time we met, I think. We've gotten to know each other more and more over time, but one of the things I want other people to do is get to know you here this morning. Why TPMG? What was it about that practice that was so interesting to you?
So I had a long background in healthcare. When I first began practicing as a lawyer, I did med-mal defense. And then over the years, my experience in healthcare was a little bit different than what, would a normal track for a typical lawyer. And when I was working at Massey Energy, I became head of HR, and then I was CAO, Chief Administrative Officer. And one of the things that I realized is that next to your paycheck, that the most important benefit to an employee is health care.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I had the idea and the concept at that time to develop, construct, manage, and operate our own healthcare center outside of our healthcare plan for folks living in Central Appalachia. And it was called the West Virginia Family Wellness Center. So healthcare quickly sort of became the focal point of my professional career. And then Massey was acquired, and the new company did not survive and ended up working for a concierge medical company. But because of family members who were physicians, my extensive healthcare background, the opportunity for TPMG arose. And it wasn't something that I had to think long about. It really has touched on every part of my career. So it has been the job that I've enjoyed the most. And I just feel like that I have been able to take every part of my professional career and contribute and hopefully add value and the excellence in healthcare that we try to provide at TPMG.
Well, I know you all take it very seriously. It's something you care a lot about, and you try to find very innovative ways to be efficient, but also be very caring.
We do. It's a fantastic group. I can't say enough about the physicians and the leadership at TPMG, and there's not a week that goes by, there's not a week that goes by that I'm just not so thankful for the opportunity to be there. It's not always easy to be a physician today. And I think having that resource, that in-house counsel, the immediate access, I think is so important. And I really view my role, it's not that they're my client. A lot of folks, lawyers, will refer to, their group as their client. I mean, the physicians, are really the peers who I'm trying to support so they can provide that excellence in care, to our patients. And I hope that's the resource that I'm able to bring to TPMG.
Well, what I heard in there is trust and relationship and support. And doctors need all of that if they're going to focus on other people the whole time. They never look up. So they need people like you.
Yeah, and it's real-time support, so there's, having that in-house counsel position, someone can pick up the phone, hey, we have this patient issue, or we've had this happen. And so there's, real-time access to me. But again, I take my role, it's just so important to me to be able to support our physicians. And again, I just think we have some of the most incredible caring physicians that I've known in my career at TPMG.
I've met a number, and I have to agree they're special. They're special people.
For sure.
Well, talk to me about your personal journey. You joined TPMG, you went through COVID, and then something else big happened in your life.
Yeah, for sure. When I joined TPMG, never could have foreseen that we would be sitting here beginning to have this conversation that we're about to have. So my story actually began even before I was at TPMG, but I didn't recognize it. In July of 2018, I had some type of episode one evening, and I ended up later being diagnosed with REM sleep behavior disorder. And it took me over a year to go see a physician. REM sleep behavior disorder is a very rare, it's not a well-known condition. A lot of primary care physicians really are not that familiar with it. If you have RBD or REM sleep behavior disorder, your risk of developing Parkinson's or Lewy bodies or MSA is very high. So at the end of 2019, I sought medical care for these nighttime incidents that were happening that I really had no idea. And the physician I went to said, I think you have something called REM sleep behavior disorder. This is at the end of 2019, just before COVID. Mm-hmm. And she says, I also want you to go see a movement disorder specialist. And I looked at her funny.
A movement disorder specialist.
So that is a type of neurologist.
Yeah.
And we're lucky in Richmond to have VCU and the Movement Disorder Center here in Richmond. Because, you have a slight tremor in your hand, and I'm so slight,
That you didn't notice it.
It didn't mean anything to me. And I sort of had that, moment. So right before COVID, I was tested, and it was confirmed that I had RBD. RBD, you might consider, they call it a prodromal form of Parkinson's or an early form of Parkinson's. What I've learned about Parkinson's that's really unique is that there are no two people who are exactly the same. Symptoms present, it's almost like a snowflake, but literally no two folks have exactly the same symptoms. So for my journey with Parkinson's, it began with RBD. I had some Parkinsonisms. Of course, COVID hit. Have a fabulous physician who encouraged me to think about getting involved in a clinical study. He went out of his way, above and beyond, to help find a study for me to participate in. And this is all happening during COVID. So I'm dealing, with, if you remember what COVID was like,
it was a nightmare for practices and people in healthcare.
Just in general, in families and the fear and, what was happening.
Separation.
And healthcare and what was happening. It was sort of counterintuitive that healthcare practices would have to worry about, whether they were going to be able to see another month. But really through that involvement, I was enrolled in a study up at Harvard at Mass General. The first visit was March 13th that, of course, got canceled.
Yeah.
But that set up for me just sort of a whole domino effect. I became involved in that study, and then through that, it has just opened so many doors. During the process of that, it was a slow progression for me. I didn't wake up one day with Parkinson's. I woke up one day with RBD, but then over a period of a couple of years, and then I guess it was in 2022, that it became a Parkinson's diagnosis, that I began taking medications, managing symptoms. But I always say when I speak, people will ask me, how has it changed your life? And I say, I feel like I'm an incredibly lucky person. And sort of an oxymoron to say I have Parkinson's and I feel lucky. But I feel lucky because I work with an incredible group of physicians and I have an amazing care team. Dr. Matthew Barrett was the person who first encouraged me to get involved in that clinical study. he has been just so supportive. And then because of that, it has opened up speaking opportunities for me. It then led to my involvement in the Parkinson's Foundation, a member of the People with Parkinson's Advisory Council. So I sort of have taken that compass that guided me in my professional life. Mm-hmm. It was so important to me in my professional life to have excellence in healthcare. And now in my personal life, sort of followed by that same compass. I really want to be able to make a difference.
I love that you've been so open about it. I think it's a lot, one, to be diagnosed with anything, but something like Parkinson's. And then during COVID, when we're not with other people and social and sharing kind of fell apart in a lot of ways. And then that you're just so open and you talk about it and you encourage people to be part of the conversation.
So it wasn't easy at first. I wasn't open in the very beginning. A few people in my family knew, but beyond that, particularly when it was just the RBD, because of the study participation up at Harvard, I was asked to speak. There's a program that Harvard has called Planning for the Prevention of Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. And there was a reporter from WebMD who heard me speak, and she said, "Hey, can I interview you and your wife?" And we thought about it, and I said yes. And that was really the first time that I became open about it. But what I've realized is that, there are so many people that have a diagnosis like that do self-isolate. They're,
yes.
They're fearful. And, and I have become very open because I think it's important for patients, for caregivers to have an advocate. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to always manage that road yourself, to find the resources, the education. Mm-hmm. And, I'm really here to say, that you can live a good life with Parkinson's, and it is something that you can help manage your symptoms. It's a second full-time job for me. My whole life is revolving around, doing PT, doing exercise, working, and then I'm involved in the way that I am. But mm-hmm. I think providing that support and encouragement and awareness and education to others has such a powerful impact on other, folks, and, and hopefully helps them better accept and manage, their condition.
Oh, I love that viewpoint. And I love how contributory it is and how generous it is. It requires, in my opinion, a level of bravery with vulnerability that most of us struggle with. My guess, too, watching family members, is that your willingness to talk about it and share with others lets them care for you more. And so talk to me a little bit about how it's been with your colleagues and your community and your friends.
So I think talking about it actually makes it less scary for particularly for my family. From the earliest moments of, when I learned that I had RBD and then it became a Parkinson's diagnosis, I made a commitment to myself very early on. And that commitment was, I don't want to be defined later by the disease and by the symptoms. I want to be defined by what I did to make a difference. And I co-authored an article with some folks in the study up at Harvard. One of the things that we said in the article I think is so simple but is so true, is that doing good feels good. And that doing good is never the wrong, wrong thing. But I think, for, coworkers, physicians that I work with, my family, I think people really respect, I'm out there trying to make a difference, and, I think it just helps surround you, with that support.
I agree.
If you're quiet about it, then you don't have that same
Well,
level.
people don't know what to do. They want to respect your privacy and your space. They want to follow your lead. So it does get a little awkward. And, all the work we do with Safe Haven and well-being, I know we talk about it being for people that are providers of healthcare, but it's for the whole team. And it really is to change the stigma around addressing hard things and talk about them, because then we come together. We're not isolated. And it does make a difference to everybody involved, I think.
Well, I think one of the things that so many people aren't aware of is the vastly different symptoms of Parkinson's that different people can have. A lot of people think of Parkinson's as Michael J. Fox, and the shakes and the tremors, and not everybody with Parkinson's has a tremor. a lot of folks, and myself included, my issue is more muscle stiffness and muscle rigidity.
How do people having different symptoms of Parkinson's, how does that
actually
affect community?
So what I was going to say is, let's go back. So one of the things that so many people think of Parkinson's is they think of Parkinson's, as that, that tremor and the shakes. And what I often describe Parkinson's, there's so many silent symptoms that people never see.
The invisible.
So it's the invisible. So you can sit here, and you can say, gosh, John, you look great. And sometimes that's really hard, because you don't actually feel great, right? And so many of the symptoms of Parkinson's are so much more, than just having that tremor or having the dyskinesias. And there's a great diagram that shows the symptoms. There's an iceberg, and they'll show the symptoms of Parkinson's sort of above the water and below the water. But folks can't see the stiffness. You can't see the dystonia. You can have the GI issues. For me, the sleep issues. So many folks with Parkinson's struggle, with anxiety that they've never had a history of, before. So I think that's one of the things, again, by being very open and by being an advocate for other folks. It's okay to talk about it, and it helps other people, for them to say, I have exactly those same things, and it makes folks more comfortable and a safe place to be able to talk about.
Yeah, and it educates us all, because when somebody asks or says to you, you look great, what they're trying to do is be supportive. Right? So what's a better way for people to be supportive? Part of that is the education of learning, how are you feeling today?
Right.
Right? The question versus the statement.
Yeah, and I think also by saying, you look great, like I said earlier, from the very first moments, folks emphasize the importance of exercise. So the most important thing to know about Parkinson's is there is no cure right now. There's nothing on the market, to be able to stop or halt. You can only manage symptoms, but it has been proven, that exercise is the one thing that you can do to slow or reverse the progression of the disease. And, and that's where I go back and, I mentioned, being in healthcare has given me different perspective, but the different opportunities, I have a whole new view on PT and physical therapy. The importance of a PT to a person with Parkinson's. If you have a hip replacement, you break your arm, you see a PT for a few times, and then you're done. When you have a neurodegenerative disease, that person is involved longitudinally with your care. And I can't, my PT, that has worked with me, I can't be more appreciative of. He's helped me keep my head in the game.
Yeah.
He's motivated me. He's encouraged me. But it's because of that, that I think that I do look great and that I feel better and I work at it. And, he gives you that encouragement.
Sounds like a form, too, of resilience building process. Right?
Completely, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, not having a cure yet has been a big motivator for you, right?
It has been,
You've gotten very involved with the Parkinson's nonprofit organizations, right?
Yeah, so the Parkinson's Foundation, I think, is unique. They have a national council called the People with Parkinson's Advisory Council, or we call it PPAC. And it is a council of 15 people from across the U.S. and Canada that advises the Parkinson's Foundation on issues that are important to persons living with Parkinson's and their caregivers. Again, I'm incredibly fortunate. I don't know why or how I was selected, and I'm ending my 3-year term next year as a member of PPAC. But that involvement, becoming, with the Parkinson's Foundation, the more I become involved, the more I want to do. Their mission is to help make lives better. And, one of my personal pitches is there's no better way to make my life better than to help advance research towards a cure. Also, we're, longtime residents of Richmond. It's a great place to live and work. When I first joined PPAC, I learned of this event called Moving Day. Like, well, what is Moving Day? And it was an event held in 48 cities, not in Virginia. It's the Parkinson's Foundation's signature event. So it helps fund cutting edge research. It helps provide funds for access to care for centers of excellence, and it helps return money to our communities for our free local programs for folks, with Parkinson's. So it is, it's more for me than just, becoming involved with a nonprofit. I mean, it has become a passion and a mission for me.
Yes, it has.
And
I've witnessed it.
I mean, there's truly hardly a day that goes by, that I really don't have some thought about, what can I do, to help make a difference, to help make, lives better. And again, it has opened so many doors for me. Speaking opportunities. I'm going to be attending the World Parkinson Congress next year as a speaker. It's just, I truly believe that it's the small efforts of lots of people, that make that wave of an impact. And, I'm very hopeful and believe, that in my lifetime, we will see a breakthrough.
Yeah. Right. Well, we've got the smartest people working on the cutting edge medicine. It's just crazy what we hear about on a regular basis now. It seems to be speeding up and speeding up.
And I've been fortunate. One of the silos that I've got assigned to as PPAC is through the Research Advocacy Program, and I've been able to both review research application grants for researchers seeking funds from the Parkinson's Foundation, as well as attend a conference and see what the results of that research are. And one of the questions I was asked in a format like this was, hearing the presenters, does it make you more hopeful, or does it, leave you,
Good question.
Do you walk away more nervous, or, that it seems like the cure is so far away? And the answer for me was, simple no. I mean, it immediately provides, hope, and, you can't sit there and listen to these presentations and just say, wow, look at what these folks are doing and the ideas that they have.
Yeah.
And again, that's what's made it so easy for me, with Moving Day, to really be out there and I carry flyers with me, and when I meet people, trying to get people involved in that.
You've gotten us involved.
Yeah.
This is our second year, and we've really doubled down on not just a team, but sponsoring and bringing other sponsors to the table. Right?
And you have, and last year it was amazing. I mean, the support. I think through that, when, businesses and companies, become involved in an event like that, it's great to see your coworkers outside of the work environment and to come together as a team, come together as a community, and do something, for the greater good. So let your guard down. You talked about that vulnerability a little bit, but I think it's great team building events. I mean, folks at work aren't used to seeing me in jeans or a T-shirt, or, right? So you get to see each other in a different way, So I just think that it not only benefits the nonprofit, but whether it's the Parkinson's Foundation. I did a Habitat for Humanity event years ago with my team, and we all work together. I just think it has the other ancillary benefits, to building a more stronger, cohesive, trusting team in the work environment.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think it affects the wellness inside the workplace as well as camaraderie and team building?
So I hope so. It's one of the reasons, you mentioned earlier that I've been so, open about it. I hope, not just at TPMG, but for other employers, and other folks, that by being open about it, that it does create, that commitment to wellness and well-being, and it's okay to talk about it. And I know even like your support of mental health. A lot of folks with Parkinson's, like I said, do suffer from anxiety or depression. And, again, I think part of what the Parkinson's Foundation does is to provide those resources, again, to make it safe, so hopefully it does encourage employers. It's okay to talk about these things.
Okay.
And, it's great to provide the resources. And in doing that, you make yourself a stronger workplace and a better workforce.
Right. What are other things that TPMG does to encourage that kind of wellness and and well-being in the workplace?
Yeah, so I think it's one of the things that I've really drew me to TPMG from the very first interviews. Folks that I met, they had a very strong guiding vision and mission, and I've been so fortunate to be a part of an employer, who is in healthcare, and we sponsor so many events. There are fitness challenges, there are, walks and count your steps and, compete against, other sites within TPMG. There are food drives. There's a program that they call the Beacon Award, and each month someone is nominated for who has had a real commitment and made a difference at TPMG. I think it's one of my favorite programs, at TPMG, to be able to recognize and reward people. But we have something called a culture committee. And and they meet each month, and again they have all sorts of different programs to encourage, that friendly competition. And they have mental awareness tips for folks. So being a healthcare group, it makes sense, but it is.
But we don't always take the time,
right?
In healthcare. And I think a commitment from an employer, especially an independent practice, really sends a big message that we care about our patients.
Yeah, no, it is. And, one of the other things that I've done, I'm not currently doing, I've taught as an adjunct at the law school, and I have a strong HR background. And a lot of times when I speak, I'll say, if you only remember one thing about what I say today, is I want you to remember this. And I said, if I ever write a book, it will be the title of my book. And it's People Quit People Before People Quit Jobs. If you do exit interviews and you think about, what happens, people, I left a job for more money. But if you really peel back the layer of the onion, so many times the reason people left is because it involves an issue with a person, not a great manager, but when people feel valued, supported, given opportunity, that's what makes for a great workplace. And that's, I think that's how you help encourage retention. So, I just believe, people really do quit people before people quit jobs.
I think that's right. That's right. What message would you have for other leaders on how they can really build that community and wellness and that supportive environment?
So actually, I always say it really, we sometimes make it more complicated than it needs to be. Yeah. And, one of the things that I love about TPMG is there's hardly a week that goes by that someone doesn't say to me, thank you. Oh. And those two words, as a manager or a supervisor, mean more than almost anything else that you can do. Mm-hmm. Recognizing, the simple moments of daily, work life, and saying thank you for what you do. I think that's really how you build a team and how you develop a team. And again, that's not my role, now as lawyer, really.
But it's huge as a lawyer to hear you saying that. I think people don't expect the lawyer to say that, right?
But I do think it's so true. And I think that's what makes my role a little bit different. I haven't been just a lawyer in my career. I love being a lawyer. And like I said, and I love providing the support to our physicians. And again, hopefully I'm helping to make their job, being able to provide care, easier and better, so you do provide that excellence in care. But I just think for any leader, just recognizing, the strengths of the folks that work for you, and just saying those simple words, thank you. And I remember years ago I had a general counsel, who really sat down, and encouraged me to go get my MBA, encourage my professional development. So taking an interest, in folks in their career.
Connectivity with people. Yeah. In today's world, we're so separated, so it's so important.
It is. There, you have a lot of folks that do telecommute, but that doesn't mean, you may be separated by physical distance, but again, in those performance review processes, finding out, about what your professional goals are, how can I help you in that professional development? As, as a professor, one of the things I did was a mentorship program. And it's really similar. Some of my students, I have remained friends with and have, remained mentors. Same thing in the workplace. Being in mentorship, mentoring those values, I think that's what you can do as a leader.
Yeah, I love it. John, you're such an important friend to people in healthcare, and you provide such leadership and such support, and they need it. And I'm so thrilled to hear they're giving it back to you through this, and that you are collectively leading the support of the Parkinson's movement in our area. So thank you. And thanks for being here with us today.
Oh,
it's a joy.
No, thanks for having me. I believe in paying it forward, and and that's what I'm trying to do.
Such a good friend of healthcare. John, tell us so other people can get involved. What's the date of the Richmond area, or I guess National Moving Day?
Yeah, so National Moving Day actually happens on different days, and that's because the foundation has representatives at each of the moving days. So the Richmond Moving Day is October the 11th at 9 a.m. at the Richmond International Raceway. It is going to be the second moving day that we've had in Virginia. Last year's event was incredibly successful. It was more successful, than even the foundation had anticipated. Wow. And we're also, we're trying to plan we are trying to plan an ancillary walk in Virginia Beach this year also.
Oh, great.
Which would be at the same time, and the goal is to be able to bring them in through live feed into the raceway. But please mark your calendars. If you're interested, you can't have a walk without walkers. I'm always looking for folks to help support us and sponsor. But there's so many ways to become involved, and just being at the event is inspiring. Last year, the email, I received an email after the event, and for me, it sort of summed up everything that I was trying to do. The email was very simple. He just said, "Thank you." I said, "He can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done, and, you've made me remember that I'm not in this alone."
Oh.
And that's what Moving Day is about. So there, it was a simple email, but nothing can say it better, and that's what really Moving Day is. But to be there, the inspiration of it, to see the folks there, the families supporting, the support, friends and colleagues, and, it's just an incredible day.
That's great. And if you're outside of Virginia, you can just look in cities near you for the date and look it up online at Moving Day.
Just Google Parkinson's Foundation Moving Day. There's a walk in Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, Atlanta.
Lots of cities.
And that's why when I looked around, I said, wait, why are we not in Virginia? We need one.
That's great. Well, thank you again, John. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to JoyMed, a podcast series I think you'll find very interesting and compelling, all dedicated to making our healthcare workforce healthier. Come back and hear us soon.